I think it was a 1995 state income tax form, which showed that he was taking a massive
almost $1 billion
loss. Between that, there are people out there that want to sabotage his presidency with this stuff. He believes it's private information, and which it is, and he believes that it's illegally being leaked out. The problem he has is court precedent. It is okay for me to receive a document, or for Rachel Maddow or David K. Johnson to receive a document anonymously and publish that document if it's real. This document obviously was real. The 99 tax form was real. Supreme Court precedent is heavily against him on this. Now, he may try to push it. He may try to, sue just to basically put people on notice, make life difficult for them. He's done that in the past.
He sues a lot. He got an army of...
He sued Tim O'Brien on 2 paragraphs in a book that Tim wrote. He's a former journalist at the New York Times. I think he's at Bloomberg right now. He eventually got the case thrown out. Most people thought it was a frivolous lawsuit, but it stayed around for years. The depositions were taken. So he may go this route. And I know people that know him very well, close to him, last night told me that he wants to do it. The question is, does his 2 lawyers, Michael Cohen is one lawyer, and a guy named Mark Kasowitz, very good lawyer. These are his 2 outside lawyers. Do they pull the trigger on this? Because in the end, they're going to lose.
Is the rub, though, however, if I received something that I know was stolen, a radio, a bicycle, a car, isn't that some form of a crime? Would that apply to this?
No.
I mean, if these were no, because someone could have stole Donald Trump's tax returns, President Trump's tax returns, and
given it to a reporter.
And the reporter could have known that they were stolen, and that would be okay. That would exonerate the reporter still.
Yes, and it's along the lines of insider trading. It's kind of a very parallel universe here. Insider trading...
Well, would they have to tell the public? Would Rachel Maddow have had to say to the public? Because insider trading always comes down to full disclosure.
No.
Would she have had to say, hey, I'm in a possession of stolen income tax?
No, and here's the same thing with insider trading. If you mindlessly if someone tells you, Company X is going to report earnings tomorrow, and you trade on that, okay? You can, and you don't know that he stole that information from the company. You just are receiving it. You cannot be charged with insider trading. You have to know it's being stolen. As a matter of fact, you have to give the person a benefit. You have to give him something to establish that he stole it and that you paid for it.
You stay right there. We're going to bring in some attorneys who might know this a little bit better than we do. Okay. In fact, we've got to Caroline Polisi along with Diane Bass. And Caroline, I want to start with you. Does President Trump, would he have a case if he did decide that he wanted to file a lawsuit here?
Well, look, first of all, I think we can all agree that freedom of speech and freedom of the press are hallmarks of a democratic society, to be sure. However, those liberties are not without restrictions. And, we've seen time and time again that the United States government can place restrictions on these liberties in the place of privacy interests. And I think here we have a clear violation of the Unauthorized Disclosure of Information Act. And the question is going to be, to what extent was MSNBC involved in obtaining those illegal documents? Because it was a crime. We know that it was a crime to leak the documents. And the kind of blanket excuse that the First Amendment is going to somehow excuse the passing of the buck in this situation, to me, just seems disingenuous.
So in layman's terms, though, you're saying he could have a case, yes?
I think absolutely. I think there's a lot of unknowns here, and I think that once, if he makes it past the pleading stages in this case, and he engages in civil discovery and depositions are taken, and there could be, an exchange of documents, we could learn a lot more about how these documents landed up on Rachel Maddow's desk just out of the clear blue sky.
Diane?
The claim that there is anything actionable about the publication of these taxes is complete and utter nonsense. The First Amendment provides absolute immunity to the media to publish documents as long as they know that they're truthful. Nixon tried to block the New York Times from publishing the Pentagon Papers back in 1971, and the Supreme Court said that as long as the information is truthful, that they were protected by the First Amendment.
But here's the difference between that and this. Daniel Ellsberg was not paid by the New York Times to steal those documents, which was the Pentagon. We could all agree on that. And that is the rub here. If Rachel Maddow and David K. Johnson were directly involved in the theft, then there's an issue. But if they're not directly involved in the theft, and by the way, the courts have a very high standard for direct involvement, like paying them off, paying off the other person. I don't see where you get a case here by any Supreme Court precedent.
But, you know, I think there really is also another concept here, which is willful blindness. And so the question is whether or not MSNBC can really just pass the buck in this circumstance, or whether or not, you know, they have that defense of burying their head in the sand.
I think they can.
Well, Diane, let me ask you, because, again, you know, you've got a couple of issues here. A, how did they, someone got these against the will of the President of the United States. So that would hint or allude to the idea perhaps they were stolen in some way. So receipt of stolen property, even if it's some material that happens to be true, you're saying the media is completely immune to any kind of prosecution from that?
Yeah.
There's absolutely no evidence that these documents were stolen or that they were received.
If evidence were to come around, or if there was a lawsuit that eventually unearthed this evidence, would there be some sort of culpability for MSNBC and Rachel Maddow and others?
No, because they received these documents anonymously. They were mailed to David K. Johnston, who is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and a tax expert. And somebody wanted him to have these documents. And it's also important, I think, that the White House confirmed the authenticity of these documents before MSNBC published them. They authenticated them, and they had no knowledge that they were unlawfully obtained. Rachel held on to these documents for a couple of days before she published them because she wanted to make sure that there was no evidence that they were received unlawfully and that they were authentic.
You know, I tend to agree with that, but my only caveat is the Hulk Hogan case. And if you go back and look at what Gawker did, they basically filmed Hulk Hogan having sex with somebody, and Hulk Hogan sued them. The tape was real. The Gawker did not. I don't believe they paid for it. I don't think they weren't part of the sting of Hulk Hogan having sex, yet they still got nailed on an invasion of privacy grounds. I will say this, and here's the problem with drawing absolutes. It seems like the New York Times Pentagon Papers case should give immunity to MSNBC, but the courts have whittled that down lately. And look at that Hulk Hogan case. It's not directly apples to apples, but I'm telling you, you can never say with certainty when it comes to libel, because courts, like the public, they hate the press.
Sure, and of course, you know what? Donald Trump's got some pretty powerful attorneys. Caroline and Diane, thank you both very much. Really appreciate it.